right, guys, so we're going to look at 11 and 12. Is it 11 and 12? Bracket. Through 16. Okay. I don't know what in the heck I'm going to announce this to the other hour. I don't do 11 and 12. I don't know what I was assigning there. I had that in the other hour too, or in algebra. I assigned 2 problems. I don't know what book I was looking at because I've never assigned those before. Okay, if you did them, awesome. I will give you the points for it. I'll give you bonus points for it, but 11 and 12 off of 3.3. And I'll update the Google Classroom. '21 and 22.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a feeling I was staring at the wrong section when I assigned that. There's a 3-3. Yeah. And I'm going to fix that, so get assignments, instruction, edit. Yeah, so just 13 through 16. You don't have to do 11 and 12. If you've already done them and got them finished, I will give you bonus points for them. I also put a post for that because I believe 21 and 22 are the find the error. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the homework besides the 2 that didn't actually need to be assigned? We're good with that there? Yeah, I put, I think, 21 through 22, but it'll be the same thing. So what we're looking at today is parallel and perpendicular lines. We've looked at it some the last few days, talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. In a coordinate plane, 2 distinct non-vertical lines are parallel if and only if they have the same slope. If 2 lines have the same slope, then they're parallel. In a coordinate plane, 2 non-linear or non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if the product of their slope is -1. So parallel, same slope. Perpendicular, is going to be the opposite reciprocal. Reciprocal. I don't think I spelled that right. But essentially we change and flip for perpendicular. Because whenever we change and flip, their product will be -1. So we look at this here. Determine which lines are parallel and which lines are perpendicular. So if the slopes are the same, then they're going to be parallel. If the slopes are opposite reciprocals, we change and flip it, then they're going to be perpendicular. Well, the first thing we need to do to determine which lines are parallel and which lines are perpendicular is just to find the slope. And our slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It's just the equation for slope. Now we have 4 different lines here. So we can find the slope of the red line first. So when we look at the red line, there are 2 points given, yes? Well, we have 0, -1, and 2, 0. So from those 2 points, what are our y values? So 2 is x comma y, -1 is x comma y, because any point is always going to come in the form x, y. So with 2, 0, -1, what are our y values for those 2 points going to be? 0 and -1. Now the order in which we plug those in for the 2 y's really doesn't matter, because 0 minus -1 or -1 minus 0, we can put the y values in any order, but the x's have to correspond to it. Now I put 0 first, yes? What's the x value that corresponds with 0? 2, yes? So it has to go first. Minus, well, the x value for -1 is 0. So whatever y value we put first, the x value has to go first as well. Now we could have put -1 minus 0. That would have been fine, but the bottom of it would have been 0 minus 2. Well, now we just need to simplify this to get the slope. Well, 0 minus -1, a negative and negative make a positive, so 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 minus 0 is, so the slope for the red line is 1/2. And that's it. That's all we have to do to find the slope for the first line. Now we need to find the slopes for the other 3 lines. So let's find the slope for the green line next. Now the 2 points they gave us for line C, the green one, is -1, -5, and 1, -4. So what are our y values? Yeah, -5 and -4. Looking at these 2 here. Now we could say -5 minus -4. Because again, we're plugging the y values in to the equation. Now what are the x values? -1 and 1. Which one needs to go first? The -1. Since we put -5 first as the y, its x value needs to go first. Since we put -5 first, its x value is -1, so it has to go first. We have to keep them in the correct order. Now at this point here, we could plug this straight into a calculator exactly as we have it, because we can hit the fraction key, go -5 minus -4 over -1 minus 1, and it would give us the correct answer. Now if we did it by hand, well, here the negative and negative would make a positive, so we have -5 plus 4, which is -1. -1 minus 1 is -2. 1/2. Because the negative on top and bottom would become positive. So line B is parallel to line C. We know that for sure because since B and C have the same slope, it means that they are parallel to each other. So we can say that so far. Now we're not completely done because we still have 2 other lines to find the slope of. Okay. So I'm going to write up here C is equal to 1/2. B is equal to 1/2. I'm going to write those slopes there. Because I'm going to erase this here so we can actually still see the picture and the equations at the same time. Now, let's find the slope of line, because the only ones we're missing are A and D. So we can find the slope of line A. So what are our 2 points for line A? -3, 2, and 0, 3. So what are our 2 y values for those points? 2 and 3. So we can say 2 minus 3. Since we use 2 as the y value first, its x value has to go first on bottom. So 2 went on top, -3 would go on bottom. And again, at this point here, we could type this onto a calculator to get our answer. 2 minus 3 would be -1. -3 minus 0 is, so we get 1/3. So the slope of line A is, now would it be parallel to C or B? No, because they don't have the exact same slope. And lastly, we're going to find the slope of line D. Now the 2 points that they gave us for line D are, well, -3, 2, and -2, 0. Now our y values for this here, they go on top, would be between 2 and 0. So we can say 2 minus 0. But again, the x value with 2 is -3 minus -2. So again, we plug in the y values of the points and then plug in the corresponding x values. They just need to line up. Now at this point here, again, we could type this into a calculator. Or if we do this by hand, 2 minus 0 is 2. Here a negative and negative make a positive, so -3 plus 2 is -1. So that tells me the slope of line D is -2. It's going to be -2. Any questions on any of this here? There is. Okay, I'm going to erase this here, the work that we did for these. Now, for parallel, 2 lines are parallel if they have the exact same slope. Yes? So we saw that C and D are parallel because they have the exact same slope. Now, by definition, 2 lines are perpendicular if the product of their slopes is -1. Or another way to look at that is if they are the opposite reciprocal. So if we were looking at line C, C's slope is 1/2. Well, the opposite, because 1/2 is positive, we have a positive slope, yes? So the opposite of positive 1/2 would be negative, because the opposite of positive is negative, and the reciprocal, or we flip it. So 1/2, if I flip it, would become over 1, which is -2. Well, the slope of line D is -2, yes? Yes. So that means that C is perpendicular to D. Oh, wait, what else do we have? B is also perpendicular to D. Now, if we also took it from the definition, 1/2 times -2. Well, if we multiply these together, the -2 would multiply by the 1 on top, which would be -2 divided by 2. And -2 divided by 2, -2 divided by 2 is, so the product of their slopes is -1. So those are the two ways we can come about it. For the slope of A, since A is 1/3, if a line was perpendicular to that slope, well, we would flip it, so 1/3 would become 3 over 1, or just 3, and we would change it from positive to, so the perpendicular slope for 1/3 would be -3. So we change the sign and flip it to find the perpendicular slope. Questions on this here? Let's look at the next one. Number 3, determine which lines are parallel and which ones are perpendicular. So we have 4 equations again. And just a reminder, the equation for slope is our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. We can go alphabetically this time and start with line A. So line A, the 2 points that we have are what? 0, 2, and -2, -2. So our 2 y values for these 2 points are, so we can say 2 minus -2. Now since I used the y value of 2 first, what x value has to go first? 0 minus -2. Now again, with midpoint and distance formula, the order of x and y didn't matter as long as we got the x's and y's together. Here, the order does matter once we get it set up. Now both the negative and negative are going to make a, so 2 plus 2 is, 0 plus 2 is, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the slope of line A, m is equal to 2. So if I wanted a line parallel to line A, what slope would we want? 2. We want it to be the same, yes? If we're trying to find one that is perpendicular, -1/2, because since it's positive, its perpendicular slope would be negative, and we flip it from 2 over 1 to 1 over 2. So if we have a line that has a slope of -1/2, it would be perpendicular. Any questions about line A before we look at line B? So our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Well, for line B, the 2 points they gave us were 2, 3, and 0, -1. So our 2 y values would be what? So we can say 3 minus -1 over. And again, at this point here, we could type this straight into the calculator and it would actually give us the answer. Now here, the negative and negative would make a. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Thank you. 2 minus 0 would be 2. Well, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the slope for line B is m is equal to So, I mean, somewhere on the page we can say A is parallel to B. Because we can include that because I know y'all have some space off to the side over here. You can put that down there. A is parallel to B. And we know that they're parallel because they have the same slope. Any questions on this here? We're good to move on to C, because I'm going to erase again. Let's look at line C. Now the 2 points for line C are 4, 2, and 3, -1. So the y values are what? Minus. And the x values, since we use 2 first, its x value is? Because again, with any point, it's always going to come in the form x comma y. The x value will always be first. The y value will be second in any ordered pair. Now again, at this point here, we could type this into a calculator and it would figure it out. Or our negative and negative would make a positive. So 2 plus 1 is? 4 minus 3 is? So really the slope is 3. So the slope for line C, m is equal to 3. Any questions on this here before we look at line D? Line D, m is equal to, so our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Yes. Exactly. Because they did give us a specific point, the -3, 0, as one of the points on the line. But it did share a point with line B at 0, -1. So those are our 2 points. And again, we'll use the y value, so 0, -1 will go on top. And since we use 0 first, its x value, -3, has to go first on bottom. Now, we could plug this into a calculator or do it by hand. Now, the 0 minus -1 is the same as 0 plus 1. And 0 plus 1 is? 0 minus -3 would be -3, which gives us -1/3. Yeah, C would be perpendicular to D. Is the opposite reciprocal for -1/3? Well, we would change it from negative to positive, and 1/3 would just become 3/1, which is 3. And that's it. Any questions on any of this here? We feel good with this here? We need to see another example of one of these. We feel comfortable with finding the slope of a line and comparing it to parallel and perpendicular? If there are any other questions, we can always come back to it, okay? Please ask, especially if you get caught up on the homework with it. Now this here, write an equation of a line that passes through the point -1, 1 that is parallel to the given line, y equals 2x minus 3. So if two lines are parallel, they have the same what? Slope. The slopes are going to be the same. So that means the equation we want, slope, should be what? Well, the equation they gave us is y equals 2x minus 3, yes? So this is coming in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. So what is the slope of the line that they gave us? 2. So the new line that we want is going to have a slope of what? It's going to be a slope of 2, because if these two lines are going to be the same, the slopes are going to be the same. They're going to have the same slope if they are parallel. And they gave us a point, yes? Now what we're going to use to find the line is the slope-intercept form, or the equation point-slope form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So to get the actual equation of the line, we are going to use point-slope. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We'll plug the information in and then get it back into y equals mx plus b, because that's where we want to finish. Any questions on this so far? So, with the new line, what is the slope? So I can replace m with 2. Because it said it's going to be parallel, so the slope has to be 2. Now the y1 and x1 is just a point on the graph. Well, it gave me one, yes? -1 minus 1. So the y value for our point is 1, because it always comes in the form of x comma y. So for y1, I'm going to plug in 1. For x1, I'm going to plug in -1. Now we just need to get y by itself. Any questions on this here before we move on to the next part? So here we have y minus 1 equals, well, here the negative and negative would make a positive, yes? And exactly, we would multiply by 2. 2 times x would be, and 1 times, or 2 times positive 1 would be plus. Is y completely by itself? No, so what do we need to do? We just need to add 1 to both sides. Which tells us y is equal to 2x plus . It's in slope-intercept form. That's the equation of a line that is parallel to the given one, that passes through the point -1, 1. And that's it. That's all we have to do for this here. Any questions on this here? So the original line, we're just using it to get the slope. Once we have the slope, we can use it in the point given to find the new equation. Are we ready for the next one? Write an equation of a line passing through the point -4, 6, and is parallel to the line y equals 3x minus 4. So again, they gave us the original line in the form of y equals mx plus b. Now what's the slope of our original line? Well, not 3x, it would just be 3. Because 3 is in the place where m is, where the slope should be, and that would be our slope. So our new slope for the line is going to be 3. Since they're parallel, the slopes have to be the exact same. And are we given a point? Well, yes, -4, 6. Since we have the slope and a point, we can use the slope point equation to get our equation of the line. So what was our y value of the point? 6. So we'll say y minus 6 is equal to m, which is our slope, which we found to be 3 times x minus -4 close parentheses. So we took the equation y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 and plugged in the values for the slope of 3 for m and 6 for y1 and negative 4 for x1. Now over here, x minus negative 4. Well, a negative and negative would make a positive, so we can go on and change it. Now the y minus 6 is going to stay y minus 6 because we're not going to do anything with it yet. But on the right-hand side, we do have to distribute the 3. Well, 3 times x is 3x. 3 times positive 4 is going to be plus 12. Last but not least, we still need to get y by itself. So what can we do to both sides? Add 6, because since we have minus 6, to simplify the 6, we would add it to both sides, telling me y is equal to 3x plus 18. So that's the new equation. So that's the equation of a line that is parallel to the given line, y equals 3x minus 4, and passes through the point negative 4, 6. Any questions on this here? Are you ready for the next one? Yes? Yep, right there at the top. Mm-hmm. It is? Okay. This one? How do we feel about finding these lines that are parallel? We feel good with this here? Okay. Let's look at this one here. So it's at the bottom of that page. Write an equation of a line passing through the point 2, 3 that is perpendicular to the line y, or 2x plus y equals 2. So the equation that they gave us that's going to be perpendicular to is in the form of y equals mx plus b, yes? Well, that's not in the right form, is it? Because we have it in what they would call standard form. So that means I need to actually take the equation that they gave us and get it into y equals mx plus b form. We need to manipulate this equation. So what's the first thing we can do to get it in y equals mx plus b form? Minus 2x, because we need the y by itself. So we can subtract 2x from both sides. Since 2x minus 2x would be 0, leaving us with just y equals negative 2x plus 2. Now it's good because the y is by itself, yes? And the y value is positive. So we do have it in the correct form because we need y by itself and everything else on the other side. So the slope for our given line is negative 2. The slope for this given line is negative 2. Now the slope for our new line. Now, is it parallel? No, it's perpendicular, yes? So for the perpendicular slope, we need the opposite reciprocal. We need to change the sign and flip it. Now, since the slope for the given line is negative, our new slope will be positive. Now, the slope for this here is 2 over 1, or just 2. So our new slope would be 1/2. Since our original slope was negative 2, the perpendicular slope, when we changed and flipped it, would be positive 1/2. Questions on this here? So we'd have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So y minus. So again, our point that they gave us was 2, 3, x comma y. So the y value would be parentheses x minus 2. Any questions on how we got this set up? Now we can go on and distribute first because there's no negatives to take care of. So we'll be multiplying through by the 1/2. So we'll have y minus 3 equals, well, 1/2 times x is 1/2 x minus 1/2 times -2 is going to be negative 1, because 1/2 times 2 would be 1. Now what would we do next? Add 3 to both sides, because again, we do need to get the y by itself. So we get y equals, because these will cancel, 1/2 x plus 2. Any questions on these here? Let's look at this one here. Write an equation of a line passing through the point -12, 6 that is perpendicular to the line y equals 2/3 x minus 10. So did the equation that they gave us come in the form of y equals mx plus b? Yes. So that means the original slope for this line is what? 2/3. So if we're looking for the perpendicular slope, our new slope, we're going to have to change and flip it. Since it started out positive, our new slope will be negative. And if we flip 2/3, 2/3, it's going to become -3/2. The 3 would go on top, the 2 would go on bottom. We would flip it. So our original, or the equation of the line that they gave us, what is the only thing we're really wanting from it? We're only wanting the what? The slope. Because if it's parallel or perpendicular, it's all based off its slope. We really don't care about any other part of it. We just need to get the slope. And once we have the slope, we use it and the point given to find our new equation. So we have y minus, well, the y value of the slope is going to be 6. It's always the second value in the point. The point is always x comma y. So we'd have y minus 6 equals, our slope is, so we'd plug that in for m, -3/2, parentheses x minus -12. Any question on how we got to this point here? Well, the negative and negative would make a. So we really have x plus 12 inside the parentheses. What we can do is we can distribute the -3/2. We would still have y minus 6 on the left-hand side is equal to, well, -3/2 times x will be -3/2 x. Then we do -3/2 times 12, positive 12. Well, the negative times the positive will be negative. Now we could do that in our head, or you can plug that into a calculator, -3/2 times 12, and it would do it for you. 12 divided by 2 is 6, times 3 would be 18. 3/2 times 12 would be 18. And last but not least, what do we need to do? Add 6 to both sides. which would tell us that y equals -3/2 x minus 12. And that's it. Any questions on any of this here? Any questions on anything we've done so far today? Okay. If we feel good with this here, I will go on and give you the assignment. And I have already looked over it. The homework is going to be on page 146, 7 through 14, 17, 19, and 25. Thank you. Yes.